My name is Adrian Vale, 55 years old, and for nearly 2 decades I've run Vale Cyber Defense, the empire my father carved from nothing in the misty heart of Portland, Oregon. We safeguarded the digital fortresses of Fortune 500 giants, and in the Pacific Northwest, our reputation was carved in steel. I built my life on logic, every choice measured, every risk weighed. My father used to say I could see a storm before it formed. For years, that gift protected everything I loved, or so I believed. My wife, Clara, had been by my side since my late 30s, graceful and clever, seemingly devoted to both me and the family business. Our children, Noah, 17, and Leela, 15, were my pride, the anchors of my world. But as my father's strength withered under the cruel weight of pancreatic cancer, the foundation of my world began to crack. For 8 long months, I watched him fade. Each visit to OSU Medical, another reminder that no firewall, no encryption could shield us from death. He adored Clara like the daughter he never had, and I once thought that love would keep our family bound together. I was wrong. The day of his funeral, gray skies draped over Powell Butte Cemetery, rain whispering against the marble stones, should have been about remembrance. The entire tech community of Portland stood shoulder to shoulder, paying tribute to a man who'd mentored half of them. Representatives came from as far as San Francisco and Seattle, suits dark as the soil waiting to close over my father's coffin. And there, as the casket was lowered, Clara approached me, her black heels sinking slightly into the mud, an envelope in her hand. "Adrian," she said, her voice steady and deliberate, "I need you to sign these." I opened the envelope. Divorce papers. Fresh ink and the scent of paper, right beside my father's grave. "You're serious?" I whispered. "Now?" "The timing isn't ideal, but it's necessary. According to your father's will, all family assets transfer to me as the surviving daughter-in-law. My attorney says it's airtight." Her words sliced through the fog in my mind. Before I could even respond, Noah and Leela stepped up beside her. "Dad," Noah said loudly, his tone hard and unfamiliar, "we're changing our last name to Hale. Mom's new partner has offered us opportunities you never could." Leela nodded, her eyes cold. "We want to live with Mom and Damien. He understands us better than you ever did." Damien Hale, my business partner for 7 years, the man I had trusted with client networks, payroll systems, every encrypted file. And there he was, standing a few paces away, face composed, eyes unreadable. In that moment, surrounded by mourners and betrayal, something inside me didn't break, it transformed. It wasn't rage that filled me, but something far more dangerous: precision. The same cold, strategic mind that built my empire began calculating how to reclaim everything. Clara didn't know I had already seen this storm coming. Running a cybersecurity company sharpens your instincts for deception. You learn to feel it, in the pauses, the patterns, the sudden silences. For months, I'd noticed her unease, the way she guarded her phone, the late nights that didn't match her office logs, the restaurant charges for dinners she claimed never happened. And then there was Damien, smooth, polished, an MBA from Stanford and a tongue made of charm. He started asking quiet, probing questions. "Adrian, how much of the company's capital is tied to your father's real estate portfolio?" Or, "Your family trust must dwarf the company by now, right?" At the time, I mistook curiosity for conversation. But he wasn't chatting. He was mapping the vault. Then came July. Unusual data access flagged by IT. Client files, financial records, all touched after hours. The credentials were Damien's, but the timing didn't align with his whereabouts. That's when I called Marcus Lane, a former FBI agent turned private investigator. Within weeks, he handed me photographs. Clara and Damien at the Haithman Hotel, meeting not once, but again and again. The deeper Marcus dug, the darker it got. They'd been consulting with a probate attorney, Veronica Stern, infamous for twisting inheritance law into weapons. This wasn't an affair, it was a takeover. They planned to erase me from my father's legacy, using legal sleight of hand and emotional manipulation. Even my children had become pawns in their game. Damien promised them luxury, cars, travel, status, a world without restraint. I once heard him tell Leela at a barbecue, his smile dripping with confidence, "When I have more say in the family finances, you'll finally see what real opportunity looks like." That day at the graveside, I saw my empire collapsing, and quietly, methodically, I began plotting its resurrection. Elliot Merrow, 83, maybe 84, sat quietly in the back seat of my dented gray Corolla, the kind that carried the smell of wilted grass and fertilizer long after my landscaping business went under. Rain hammered the windshield in heavy, uneven waves, a gray October storm that made the city feel like it was dissolving around us. He said, "You remind me of someone I lost," and pressed a small ivory business card into my palm. His voice trembled, but his eyes, wet and glassy, were steady, as if he wanted to memorize my face. Something in that moment cracked open the air between us. It felt deliberate, fated, like some unseen thread had pulled our paths together for just that breath of time. 12 hours later, he was gone. His lawyer called it dawn. I was sitting in my car outside a McDonald's, half asleep, when the phone buzzed. By noon, I was in a downtown office surrounded by polished marble, leather chairs, and the faint smell of expensive cologne. The lawyer, a man named Conrad Wexler, told me that Elliot had left me $87 million. My brain went blank. I remember blinking, waiting for him to correct himself, to tell me it was a typo, a cruel misunderstanding. But then he slid across a letter, written in a shaky hand, signed just hours before Elliot's heart stopped beating. As he read it out loud, the words broke me open. I collapsed into that chair and cried. The kind of raw, gasping cry that makes people rush towards you thinking you're dying. The truth in that letter tore through everything I thought I knew about my family, about who I was and where I came from. Elliot hadn't just given me money. He'd given me a reason to believe that fate wasn't just some cosmic joke, that even when everything you build burns down, there's a kind of grace waiting in the ashes. 6 months earlier, I'd watched bulldozers level the greenhouse my father and I built from scratch. Marrow and Sons Landscaping. 12 employees, 5 country clubs, and a few dozen private estates, and one stubborn dream. When it all fell apart, my younger brother, Ryan, told me I hadn't just lost a business, I'd lost his trust. He said, "You caused me my home, my kids' future. You don't get to call yourself my brother anymore." His words hit harder than any foreclosure notice. Dad kept leaving me voicemails, offering help without calling it help. He'd say, "I've got money just sitting there, son. Maybe you can put it to use for me." I couldn't take it. Pride is a strange kind of hunger. It eats you slower, but emptier. I slept in my car behind a Walmart for 3 months. The leather seat became bed, desk, and cage all in one. Every morning, the sound of delivery trucks backing up became my alarm clock. I'd buy the cheapest coffee I could find, shave in a restroom mirror, and tell myself I still had a chance. The Uber app became my last lifeline. Every ping, every stranger's face appearing on the screen felt like the universe whispering, "Maybe this one will matter." I began to document everything. Every hushed meeting, every strange financial pattern, every word I could safely capture. If betrayal was their weapon, evidence would be mine. My attorney, Patricia Morrison, a sharp-minded specialist in corporate fraud, met me in quiet confidence one gray September afternoon. She'd handled some of the biggest financial crime cases on the West Coast, and her eyes didn't flinch easily. "Adrian," she said, her tone measured but grave, "if Clara and Damien are doing what you think they are, they'll have to cross several federal lines: wire fraud, embezzlement, maybe even racketeering if their scheme touches multiple states." Her words were steady, but underneath them, I could hear the storm gathering. Still, I couldn't act yet. My father's health had entered its final descent, and scandal, especially of this kind, would have crushed him. He had adored Clara. He'd walked her down the aisle at our wedding, tears in his eyes, believing she'd bring peace to the family name. To expose her then would have killed what little light he had left. So I waited. I watched. And I prepared. Quietly, I moved assets into accounts Clara couldn't touch. I gathered every irregular transaction under Damien's signature, preserved every trace of digital deceit. And behind it all, I built silent monitoring systems, invisible threads designed to catch any unauthorized attempt to bleed the company dry. The hardest part wasn't the planning, it was the pretending. Every family dinner felt like theater. Listening to Noah and Leela talk about their bright futures, knowing they'd been poisoned against me. Watching Clara smile across the table, her eyes soft, her heart elsewhere. I became a ghost in my own home. Silent, calculating, patient. Because in cybersecurity, the truth is simple. The guilty always reveal themselves when they think they're untouchable. The funeral was on Thursday. By Monday morning, they made their first mistake. I was in the office early, the city still half asleep, when Janet Kim, our CFO, knocked on my door. Her face carried that look seasoned accountants get when numbers stop making sense. "Adrian," she said quietly, "we've got a problem. Someone tried to authorize a wire transfer for $2.3 million over the weekend to an offshore consulting firm I've never heard of." I showed her, though I already knew. The screen displayed Damien Hale's digital signature on a transfer request dated Saturday, 2 days after my father's funeral. The recipient? Pacific Strategic Consulting LLC, registered in the Cayman Islands. "Freeze all external transfers," I told Janet. "Tell the bank it's part of an internal audit. Hold anything over $50,000 for 48 hours. She hesitated. "Should I let Damien know about the freeze?" "Not yet," I said. "Let's see how he reacts when the trap tightens." It didn't take long. At 10:15 a.m., Damien stormed into my office, his perfect composure shattered. "Adrian, what the hell is going on with our banking systems?" he snapped. "I have a time-sensitive consulting contract, and the bank's giving me nonsense about account freezes." I looked up slowly, letting silence fill the room. "What kind of consulting contract requires a $2.3 million transfer to the Caymans on a Saturday?" His color drained from his face. He stammered, "It's for the Henderson Industries expansion, a legitimate expense." I leaned back in my chair. "Henderson Industries is in Phoenix. What exactly are they expanding into? Caribbean beaches?" His jaw tightened, but he said nothing more. He turned and walked out, his expensive shoes whispering across the marble floor like guilt trying to escape. That afternoon, I called Patricia. "It's time," I told her. By Wednesday, she had filed preliminary injunctions freezing all joint assets. And by Friday, the FBI's Forensic Accounting Division in Portland was quietly assembling a case file. Because the beauty and the curse of financial crime is that it always leaves footprints. And when you betray a man who built his life on tracing digital ghosts, your trail is lit in neon. The forensic accountants uncovered everything. Fake consulting contracts, inflated vendor payments, phantom employees collecting paychecks that led to shell accounts. In total, they'd siphoned over $800,000 from the company, enough to make it a federal felony. But the final blow came from their own arrogance. Every company phone was backed up to our secure servers. Every text, every email, every call, all neatly archived. The transcripts read like confessions written in arrogance. Clara gloating about how she'd played the grieving daughter-in-law to perfection. Damien bragging about manipulating my father's guilt over my long work hours. And together, they mocked my children. Useful idiots, they called them. Emotional leverage. When Leela saw those words, when she realized her mother had used her like a bargaining chip, she broke down. She came to me one night, tears staining her cheeks. "Dad," she sobbed, "I saw Mom's laptop, the police reports. Is it true? Did she really steal from you?" I held her close. "Yes, sweetheart, but none of this is your fault. You were lied to by people who knew how to lie." Noah took longer. His faith in Damien had run deep. But when the FBI marched Damien out of our office in handcuffs, in full view of half our employees, reality finally cracked through. That night, the Portland Business Journal ran the headline in bold type. Vail Cyber Defense executives charged in $800,000 embezzlement scheme. The story told the world what I already knew, that while my father was dying, the woman he called daughter and the man I called partner were quietly dismantling everything he built. My ex-wife Leah had been right about one thing before she walked out. We were sitting in the kitchen of the house I'd built with loans and denial, granite countertops, custom cabinets, all for show. She looked at me like she was trying to memorize who I used to be and said, "Eli, you don't ask for help until you're already underwater. And by then, you've pulled everyone else down with you." After the divorce, she went back to Texas with our daughter June. I got supervised visits when I could scrape together the gas money for the drive. June was 7, old enough to sense that her dad had fallen from something too young to see the size of the hole he'd fallen into. I'd tell her I was just between adventures, and she'd smile like she believed it. That Tuesday morning in October, the rain came down like a punishment. Minneapolis rain has this way of cutting through you in the fall, cold, sharp, prophetic. It warns you that winter is coming, that whatever you haven't fixed by now won't survive the freeze. My wipers smeared the water instead of clearing it, making every mile look like it was seen through tears. I'd been awake since 4, 3 rides deep, $43 earned after gas. I'd done the math 1,000 times. 43 covered one more day for the storage unit, but meant I'd skip dinner again. I was running on fumes. In my tank, in my wallet, in my soul. One more day, I muttered. It had become my creed, my lifeline. One more day alive. One more day not quitting. I drove past the Riverside Club, the same one where I had once designed a Zen garden for their members. Cherry trees, smooth stones, a water feature that whispered peace. I wondered if the new contractors had kept it alive, or if the blossoms had died along with my reputation. In this city, success fades fast, but failure disappears even faster. What I didn't know then was that in 53 minutes, a dying man would climb into the back of my car and hand me a check that would upend everything. That his story and mine had been braided together long before we ever met. That before the day ended, I'd be forced to reckon with the truth about fate, family, and the forgiveness I'd never learned to give myself. In the months that followed the arrests, something remarkable happened. Our clients didn't abandon us. They rallied behind Vail Cyber Defense. They saw the story for what it truly was. Proof that our systems worked. That even betrayal couldn't outsmart integrity. After all, we'd caught the criminals using the very defenses we'd built. Within weeks, new contracts began flowing in. Companies wanted what we had, security forged in fire. Clara's assets were frozen, including the house she had smugly assumed would be hers after manipulating the inheritance. She ended up living with her sister in Beaverton, taking a job at a call center just to afford her attorney fees. Damien Hale, stripped of his Stanford credentials, found himself blacklisted in the tech world. No respectable firm would touch him. Last I heard, he was selling insurance in Spokane, his once perfect suit traded for cheap cologne and false smiles. The probate court ruled that Clara's actions amounted to financial elder abuse against my father. That single verdict erased her from the inheritance she'd schemed so hard to steal. The trust remained exactly as my father had intended, safeguarding the company and funding his grandchildren's education. But the truest sense of closure didn't come until 6 months later. In the federal courthouse in Portland, under the harsh white lights of justice, I watched Damien and Clara face their reckoning. Judge Sarah Chen presided with the calm precision of a surgeon. Damien received 4 years in federal prison and was ordered to pay $850,000 in restitution. Clara received 3 years, plus $400,000 in damages for her role in the conspiracy. The prosecutor called it one of the most cold-blooded cases of financial elder abuse I've seen in 20 years. I watched them being led away in shackles and felt no triumph, no vengeance, only the quiet rhythm of justice doing what it always does when given enough time. But justice wasn't the only thing that changed. It was my relationship with Noah and Leela that truly began to heal. The truth about their mother had cracked their world apart, but in the wreckage, we built something real. "Dad, how did you stay so calm through all this?" Noah asked one evening as we worked side by side in my home office, sorting through his college applications. He wanted to study computer science at Oregon State, to one day join the family business. I smiled faintly. "Son, when someone betrays your trust, you have 2 choices. You can react in anger and make mistakes, or you can think strategically and let their own actions destroy them. People who lie and steal always reveal themselves. Eventually." Leela, now in her final year of high school, had taken a new fascination with business law. After witnessing the trials, she'd spent evenings sitting across from me, asking about corporate governance and legal ethics. "Were you ever afraid Mom might actually win?" she asked softly one night. "Afraid? No," I said. "Disappointed, yes. But your grandfather taught me something long ago. Always keep detailed records and never act out of anger." Those lessons saved us. The company didn't just survive, it flourished. Our reputation for detecting internal threats became legendary. Soon, we were the go-to firm for corporations terrified of insider betrayal. We signed contracts with Nike, Intel, and major banks across the Pacific Northwest. Revenue rose 40% in the year after the scandal. I promoted Janet Kim to Chief Operating Officer, expanded our forensic accounting team, and developed a suite of internal protocols that later became industry standards. Even the Harvard Business Review published a case study about our approach to insider threat detection. 3 years later, a letter arrived. It was from Clara, written from FCI Dublin in California. She claimed to be reformed, attending Bible study, seeking forgiveness. She asked if she could have supervised visits with Noah and Leela. I didn't answer right away. Instead, I showed the letter to my children, both now in college. "Dad," Leela said firmly, "some bridges can't be rebuilt. She made her choices, and we've made our own." Noah nodded. "We've got a business to run. That's our future, not her past." Their clarity made me proud. As for Damien, he sent several letters of his own, full of excuses, financial pressure, misunderstanding, misplaced trust. I stopped reading after the first paragraph each time. Some people never learn accountability. Today, Vail Cyber Defense employs over 200 people, with offices in Portland, Seattle, and San Francisco. Noah graduated summa cum laude from Oregon State and now leads our threat analysis division. Leela earned her business law degree from the University of Oregon and runs our legal compliance department. Together, we created the Henry Vail Scholarship Fund, in my father's name, awarded annually to students of cybersecurity and business ethics. Because he always said true success requires both intelligence and integrity. Last month, we celebrated the company's 30th anniversary at the Portland Art Museum. As I stood at the podium, the faces before me, clients, partners, employees, reflected not just a company, but a legacy reborn. That betrayal, the one that began on the day of my father's funeral, had not destroyed us. It had tempered us. Clara and Damien thought they could steal our name and our future through deceit. Instead, they proved something far more powerful, that real success is built on patience, preparation, and principle. My father used to tell me, character isn't built during calm waters, it's revealed during the storm. The worst betrayal of my life became the cornerstone of the best years our family ever knew. Some people would call it revenge. I call it accountability. Because in business, as in life, the truth always surfaces. You just have to wait long enough for it to rise. So when young entrepreneurs ask me for advice, I give them the same words my father once gave me. Keep meticulous records. Trust, but verify. Never let emotion override reason. Those principles will shield you from betrayal and anchor your legacy in integrity. The Vail name still means something in Portland's business circles. It means reliability. It means precision. It means a family who turned deceit into discipline and loss into legacy. And that is a story worth protecting. Elliot asked about my father, about what kind of man he was, whether we still spoke, whether I'd ever made peace with how things ended. Before I knew it, I was telling him things I hadn't said aloud to anyone. How I'd failed the family name. How my brother Ryan still blamed me for wrecking the business and his future. How my father defended me to anyone who'd listen, at church, at the hardware store, wherever he went, as if his belief in me could rewrite what I'd ruined. "He sounds like a good man," Elliot said softly. "The best," I whispered, which makes disappointing him feel worse. "Pull over," he said, suddenly his tone sharp, but not unkind. "Please, just for a moment." I guided the car into a Walgreens parking lot. The rain had picked up again, drumming against the roof in restless rhythms. He was breathing hard, not from effort, but from something deeper, something old. "I flew here to visit his grave," he said after a long silence. "First time since the funeral. I've been carrying a letter to him for 30 years. I rewrite it every birthday, every anniversary, but I've never been able to read it at his headstone. 37 years of airports and meetings, and I couldn't drive 20 minutes to Lakewood Cemetery." His voice cracked, and for the first time, he looked small, not in stature, but in sorrow. "Why now?" I asked quietly, turning toward him. The car felt like a confessional, the world outside erased by rain. "Doctor gave me 3 weeks, he said, matter-of-factly, like he was reporting quarterly losses. "Pancreatic cancer, stage 4. Apparently it's been killing me while I was too busy planning next year's expansion." The words hit me like a gut punch. This man, this stranger who'd peeled open his grief to me, was dying, counting his life not in months, but hours. "I have no one left, Eli." And hearing my name and his voice sent a chill through me. My wife, Clara, passed 10 years ago, heart attack in her sleep. No other children, just lawyers, employees, and a fortune that feels like a monument to my loneliness. He looked down at his trembling hands. "Do you know what it's like to have everything and no one to leave it to? No one who remembers you for who you were, just for your signature on their paychecks?" He reached into his coat and pulled out an old leather checkbook, the kind you don't see anymore. The gold pen in his fingers glinted as he clicked it open. "Let me pay you for your time." I told him the app handles that, Mr. Merrow. "This is different." His pen moved with surprising steadiness as he wrote. "This isn't about the ride. It's about the conversation, about you listening to an old man's regrets without trying to fix them." He tore the check neatly,
folded it twice, and placed it in my hand. Promise me you won't look at it until you're home, and promise me that tonight, wherever you're sleeping, you'll call your father. Tell him you love him. Tell him you're sorry. Tell him anything except nothing." His eyes had changed, no longer hollow, but burning with urgency. "I would trade every dollar, every property, every stock I've ever owned for one more argument with my son. One more chance to say, 'You were right. I should have trusted you. Your impatience was passion, not rebellion.'" He handed me his card then. Heavy paper, raised letters, the kind that felt like it belonged to someone who mattered. "If you ever need anything, not money, not favors, just someone who understands what it means to fail at the only thing that really matters, call me."